On this episode, we explore the ancient ruins of the lost city of Pompeii and scuba dive the little-known sunken city of Baiae, Italy. We always appreciate you taking the time to hit that like button. So this morning we're on our way to go scuba diving at a submerged Roman city in, we think we're pronouncing this correctly, Baiae. Anyway, it used to be quite the ritzy place where all of the Caesars and Nero and several others vacationed, and it was all destroyed when Vesuvius exploded, and now it's in a sunken area of the harbor. There's some ruins of the city as well. We had our first adventure on an Italian subway to get regional subway, which was just a hoot and a half. But we ended up in this little town. We're waiting for a couple of hours for the people who own the scuba shop to come pick us up. Ornella, who I've never met in person. I've only emailed with, so I'm hoping and praying she actually shows up. If not, we know how to get back. Anyway, beautiful morning. The weather is perfect. We can't wait to do this.
And this is a beautiful part of Naples.
And this is a very nice part. It's a suburb of Naples in the northern part of Naples Bay.
Provincia?
I don't even remember what it's called.
Provincia?
Anyway, it's quite pretty. During the wait, we decided to have one of those quiet, intimate, street-side lunches you so often see in movies. So one thing I've discovered, it doesn't seem to matter where we go in Italy. One thing is common to all of it, and that is that middle-aged Italian men absolutely love my new wife. She's drawing looks from several men. Even the police just passed us and they both checked her out, which I thought was pretty funny. Old men are infatuated with her on the bus, offering their seats to her. I think I know two reasons why, but I'll just leave that to you to decide. But yes, my wife is apparently the up-and-coming Sophia Loren of Italy. As you can hear behind me, quite the bird calls. Then we finally figured out it must be a recording to scare birds away from getting up into the canopy up there, because we can't see a single live bird anywhere, and this thing just keeps going off at random. But they don't sound like they're from here. After another half hour of being serenaded by bird calls, our ride finally picked us up at the train station. Amy was able to rent us a small but quaint room at the Lorada Inn through Airbnb. And of course, it had a bidet. Behind me is the remnants of the Temple of Venus in Baiae. which was part of the Roman, basically Romans' version of Monaco. And this would have been one of the fancy temples that the nobility would have used back during that period before the city was abandoned and sunk due to volcanic activity, a lot of volcanic activity in the area, which we hope will not be showing its face here anytime soon. Our guide Ornella with Sub Baiae Divers was a very gracious host and a great guide. Baiae now rests in about 20 to 30 feet of water on the northern end of the Bay of Naples, and the Italian government has designated this an archaeological marine park. The ancient port was once the Monaco of the Roman Empire, where the wealthy and powerful kept beautiful seaside estates that have been lost to history. The volcanic activity of the area affected this much like Pompeii, but it wasn't a fast, cataclysmic event, rather actually occurring over a period of about 100 years. After the city remains were emptied, the water level slowly rose due to the same volcanic vents that were once a draw to the area, and most of the ancient ruins were drowned under the shallow waters of the bay. As you can see, the effect of being buried by sand and preserved by the salt water, the mosaic tiles were perfectly preserved under the city. Here Ornella is showing us remnants of a column that once sat at the footing of this structure. Romans really enjoyed their creature comforts. Here Ornella's taking us to what was once a public spa, where steam was produced under a raised floor and distributed through the walls. And it was so efficient that even 2,000 years later you can still replicate where the steam went up through the vents with her regulator. This particular dive is the Villa Protiro. If you do a Google search of Baiae, you will likely see pictures of submerged statues, most of which are good copies of the originals placed there for divers. Many of the statues that weren't buried under sand had portions eaten away by mollusks and sand movement, so they've been removed and placed in a museum on the west side of the bay, which unfortunately has been closed due to budget constraints. So these feral cats seem to have taken over this Temple of Venus. Yeah, somebody's been feeding them. They don't look very happy, especially this guy. He looks kind of pissy.
They don't like people.
They don't like people at
whoever's
all.
feeding them, but that's probably about it.
Weird. Cats are weird. He just sprayed all over that thing. We were starving after our dive, and the locals suggested a restaurant just to the left of the red building in the middle of the screen. La Locanda del Testardo, which turned out to be a hidden gem. It had really nice eclectic decor and fantastic food. Like typical Americans, we arrived around 7 p.m. for dinner, and we're the only ones there. By 9 p.m., the place was packed with locals. Unfortunately, we were only in Baiae for one day. Our schedule didn't allow us to stay any longer, so the next day we took a train ride to visit the ancient ruins of Pompeii. You can camp and park in the Zeus section. I guess the Apollo section is somewhere else, but I thought that was pretty funny. We booked our tour months in advance with our favorite app, Viator, and fortunately for us, we got a really great tour guide for Pompeii, unlike the one that we had at the Colosseum. It was a perfect day to tour Pompeii, and a little bit of a traveler's tip here. We went in the afternoon rather than the morning, and our tour guide said he had never seen the place so empty. One of the interesting things about Pompeii is that they used to put their waste out into the street. So the streets were frequently flooded, and they would put little pathways you could walk across, which were cut stones exactly to the width of a chariot's wheel. One of the highlights of the trip for us was the amphitheater of Pompeii, whose acoustics are so good that in 1971, over a 4-day period, Pink Floyd made a concert film at the amphitheater titled Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii. Sadly, what it was mostly used for were brutal gladiator battles.
You think of gladiator fights. Who's in here? Who have you seen, like in movies?
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe's one. Okay. Then any other possibilities, like
Kirk Douglas.
like I say, so humans.
Ben-Hur.
What's that?
Ben-Hur.
What else if you see like lions, tigers, things like this? Okay.
Oh my.
In this amphitheater, this never happened. We never had lions and tigers in here. Because we go back to the fact that this was the first amphitheater. So as it was the first one, it was just like Gladiator A fighting Gladiator B. This family, before 60 years, was really wealthy. They could afford such a big fresco, probably decorated in much nicer way. But it's just perfectly as it would be today. If you're going to shop out here now in Pompeii, in modern Pompeii, you can buy this bread exactly in the same way. But less cooked, but seriously, it's to tell you how this, once again, it's not a plastic. It's large, okay? And from this, we're stepping in a place. Look how small it is. Gets much smaller and tighter, and it would have been darker. You think that these buildings would have had 2 floors, so it's quite oppressive in here. Now, this place was called Lupanare. Lupanare, the word lupa means a she-wolf in Italian. So, what's the link between she-wolves and prostitutes? Now, because we're coming so out of the way, and because the place is not tempting, I mean, people won't come in here if they're not encouraged to come in here, okay? What you would have had the ladies working in this place. You would have come halfway down the road, and then something like, woo, woo, or something like that. Okay, I'm not very good at reproducing the sound, okay, and that would vaguely recall the sound of a she-wolf.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why the place was called Lupanare.
Yes, folks, that's a bed in a Pompeii brothel, and above it in the hallways were the menus. A patron could basically point to those, and the ladies or the men would accommodate you.
A Okay, that's the place where you would actually get washed. There would be a former version of public toilets there. Ladies, don't take it personally, this is more like the men's version of the public toilet because like 3 walls with a dribble of water coming from the pipes at the top, so it washes the walls down. That's what it is, okay? And then there's a female section and a male section, okay? I want to show you the male section, and you'll understand why.
It was really neat to see the inside of a spa that we had basically witnessed the day before, but underwater. It was quite an engineering marvel. One of the interesting things during the eruption of Pompeii is that these soup bins, they actually found coins in them because the proprietor dumped them in there as he fled the city in order to protect his wealth.
But because the Romans were so upset at this emperor for the decision he took, they named after him the public toilets they had invented at the time. So if you look on an Italian dictionary for the word Vespasiano is the name of the emperor, but it's also an old Italian word for public toilets. They didn't appreciate the decision too much.
With a good tour guide, it's easy to forget that Pompeii is basically a graveyard. A thriving city flourished at the foot of Mount Vesuvius. The eruption destroyed the city, killing its inhabitants and burying it under tons of ash. Many died as a result of the toxic gases and superheated pyroclastic flow. A plaster casting of ash depicts a man gasping his last breaths. This city, once populated by men, women, and children, was a historical marvel in its day and was lost and forgotten for over 1,000 years. The eruption occurred on the 24th of August, AD 79, just one day after Vulcania, the festival of the Roman god of fire, including that from volcanoes. Pompeii has been a tourist destination for over 250 years. Today it has UNESCO World Heritage Site status and is one of the most popular tourist attractions in Italy, with approximately 2.5 million visitors each year. We had an amazing tour of Pompeii just now. We're getting into Salerno on the train. Unfortunately, I only brought one battery on the tour, so I took mostly photographs and less video, but it was an awesome trip. A lot of people have heard criticized Pompeii as not being as cool as maybe Herculaneum or other historical sites, but we thought it was fantastic. We had a great tour guide, spoke English with an English accent with a slightly Italian accent mixed in with it, kind of hard to describe.
He's Italian.
But he's Italian, but he has an English mother. Very entertaining, very enjoyable. So we're going to go out and find some food in Salerno.
So far, it's my favorite ruin. So.
Yeah. We're going to go into Salerno, find some food for tonight, and then hit the hay because we're tired. We got to go to Capri tomorrow.
Early, 8.
Yep.
Ciao.